Live stream has started.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm just looking around to see if we have a quorum. I have 1, 2. I don't think we have a quorum. So we'll wait a few minutes for other directors to join us.
Jim, there we go. Jim's on.
All righty. So once again, good morning, everyone. It's April the 27th, and welcome to the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation board meeting. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our enthusiastic board of directors and, of course, our hardworking staff. And those of you who are joining us online, our tenants, our beloved tenants, as well as members of the public. We've got a fairly engaged and lengthy agenda today, so I'm hoping that we can get through it in the allocated timeline. So I'd like to begin by calling the meeting to order. Again, I'm going to request directors and staff, if you're interested in speaking, please go through the chair. And if I don't recognize you, maybe you can indicate, in addition to raising your hand, you may want to verbally indicate your intention to speak. So I'll proceed with the land acknowledgement. We honor the land we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, Confederacy, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nation. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. The board also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. And now for the African ancestral acknowledgement, we are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We would also like to acknowledge those who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, we honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. I see the agenda has been circulated, so I'll move to item number 3 and ask if there are any amendments to the agenda. Hearing none, may I ask someone to move the following: be it resolved that the public meeting agenda as presented to the board is approved.
So moved, Mr. Chair. It's Warren.
Thanks a lot, Warren.
Seconded,
may I have a second,
Gary.
please?
Gary.
Thanks, Gary. All in favor? Thanks, Gary. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much. Are there any conflict of interest? Okay, I don't see any indication of conflict. If anything arises during the course of the agenda, please identify that conflict. Thank you. I'm now on item number 5. Are there any amendments to the minutes? This is the minutes of the public session of February the 23rd. We'll go with February 23rd, and then we'll go with April the 3rd. I have a few minor amendments to the first one, February the 23rd, and I'm not going to go through them. I'll leave it up to Monique and others to make the adjustments. Just on page 6, second paragraph, there's some awkward wording there. You may want to fix it. And on page 8, February 23rd minutes under the paragraph listed as item 10B. I believe it should read, he indicated that all 3 projects have been launched and 5 meetings have taken place, focus on team structure. Again, this is some awkward wording that someone may want to adjust. Other than that, I don't have any other corrections to the minutes. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. What about minutes of April the 3rd? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion, be it resolved that the public session board minutes of February 23rd and April 3rd, 2023 are approved?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Warren. May I have a seconder, please?
Second that.
Thanks. Is that Jim?
Yes.
All right. Moved by Warren, seconded by Jim. All in favor? That is approved. Okay, moving right along. Item number 6, approval of closed session board minutes, February 23rd and April 3rd, 2023. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion? Be it resolved that the closed session board minutes of February 23rd, 2023 and April 3rd, 2023 are approved.
Moved, Mr. Chair. It's Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. May I have a seconder, please?
Seconded by Warren.
Thanks, Warren. All in favor? Any opposed? That is approved. Okay. So we'll now move to item number 7, matters arising. Are there any action items, matters arising? Okay, I'll move to item number 8. Mr. Hunter, over to you for your CEO report.
Through the chair, good morning, everyone, and pleased to provide the update to everybody. And there is a long agenda, and so I just mentioned briefly some items that are on the agenda, and just some, as I said, some other areas for information for all of you. But just you'll see on the agenda today, as you know, there's a few key items around our interim strategic directions and the KPIs, our annual report, and our audited financial statements, and really pleased to be able to bring these forward and for the board's consideration on those. Also, with the quality improvement projects, just quickly to report, they've been moving along well, and you know, we did 2 of the projects have wrapped up with their 5th meetings, and Jim was there to close those 2 off. So thanks to that, and once again, those recommendations will be coming forward to the through the QTE, through the board at the next set of meetings. Also, the listening tour is concluding. I'm just trying to figure out 4 more locations because of logistics, and then middle of May, starting with getting to the buildings once per week. And so, as I've said to this group before, you know, it really has helped inform and our work, and just always so good to hear that tenant perspective and tenant feedback. Also, want to just share with the board that we received approval from CRA on our HST application to be deemed as a determined municipality. So this means that we will be eligible for a rebate of GST and the federal portion of the HST, as well as 68% of the provincial part of the HST. So this is also good news for us, and it is effective June 23rd, 2021. So you know, the team worked hard to enable that to happen. So just wanted to provide the board an update there. Also, approaching quickly June 1st, that would be the official 1 year of operating as a Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, and our real focus is going to be celebrating with the staff at the get together to commemorate that 1 year. So there's days where I think, wow, you know, it's a year, it's gone by quick, and others that seems like, well, it seems like a bit of a long time as well. But we're there and really pleased. Also, it's with the municipal election underway, just from a board perspective, just wanting to remind the board members of the policy regarding elections and also the participation of board members. And this is available on our website, and it can be circulated to the board members if you would like to see it, or if you're going to participate in any way and just want to make sure that there's no conflict. We have that information to provide. And then finally, with the board, with an update on the public appointments process for the board membership. And so, and many of you would know that that is well underway. And just to indulge me around some of the high points of this, it's important for us, and I'll really start by saying that we've been impressed with the city staff, that continuity is important, you know, with the board, and so that really needs to be taken into consideration as we move forward with the next board. But the City Public Appointments Office leads the board appointment process. The board member application process is currently underway, and applications will close for public board members May 1st and for tenant directors May 12th. The advertising tenant director opportunities in TSHC buildings is being coordinated by the city, poster, social media, which we'll post. There will also be 2 online information sessions for tenant directors that the city is holding on May the 4th from 6 to 7, and May the 5th from 1 to 2. So that's for potential tenant board members. City public appointments will then be shortlisted, applications based on qualifications as detailed on the city's website, forward to the corporation's nominating panel. And just for information, this nominating panel is Councillor Holiday, who's the chair, Councillor Pasternak, and Nunziata. The interviews are conducted, and then the city public appointments plan to bring recommendations for the board membership to the June 14th and 16th city council meeting, and then take effect June 17th. And then similarly for the chair would be brought forward to a subsequent July 19th and 21st city council meeting. And that's for the chair of the board. And then so that just to share that the highlights of that process, which is underway. And so just those were my updates for the board this morning. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Tom. That was a good update, and congratulations on the GST. And I'm hoping that
Yes.
for our fourth year anniversary, we will have the opportunity to get together in person. And thanks for the update on the mayoral engagement as well as the board appointments. Are there any questions for Tom? Yes.
It's Carrie, just
Sorry,
just a quick comment. Tom, it truly is unbelievable that the listening tour is 98% complete. That is absolutely no small feat. And, having seen a number of them, it's been an incredible accomplishment on your part. So congrats on that for the stamina in seeing that through.
Thank you, Carrie.
Indeed, thanks. Okay, all right, thanks again. Sorry, Councillor Crisanti.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Fareed. I was trying to signal with my hand, but then I thought I'd do it this other way. So thanks for the update. I caught the last portion of it, Tom, and just wondering, do you happen to know what the rebate looks like in terms of what the total rebate for HST looks like?
Through the chair to the council, I'll let Vince put up his hand.
Sure.
Timing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vince.
Chair, the rebate expected to be about close to $200,000. That went back as far as June of 2021.
Okay, and I would assume that Toronto Community Housing also qualifies for that. We're just falling in line with what's typically is done in this case, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And yeah, I'm also very pleased that Tom, the listening tour is going well. I just want to acknowledge that as well. And I understand you're still looking for a couple of locations to.
Through the,
Yeah.
Through the chair to the councillor. So there's 4 sites where 2 are currently there's construction in the common areas, and then 1 is a spread out site. And so just we're trying to determine, can we hold the listening tour close by so that it is easy for the tenants to get there. So that's just finalizing the logistics of those last locations.
All right, so they've already been selected. Great, that was it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to proceed with the next item on the agenda, which is the audit, item number 9, which is the Audit and Finance and Risk Committee report. I'll hand you over to the Vice Chair and Chair of that committee, Mr. D'Souza. Lawrence, over to you.
You're on mute, Lawrence.
Thank you for reminding me that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Audit, Finance and Risk Committee met on March 22nd. CEO Tom Hunter provided an update on the short-term financial sustainability planning that TSHC is currently leading in partnership with our corporation and the city. EY is assisting TSHC in this plan. Louisa Andrews, VP ITS of TSHC, made a presentation on cyber threats, especially ransomware, and the proposed mitigation and response plans for TSHC and our corporation. Auditors KPMG presented their audit findings report to the committee and answered the queries from the members. KPMG, I believe, will be present with us today and will be making that presentation to the board shortly. The committee also reviewed the 2022 audited financial statements and decided to recommend them to the board for its approval. The committee also decided to recommend to the board to appoint KPMG as the auditor for the year ending December 31, 2023. Finally, the committee reviewed the proposed extensions of a few interim staff contracts and recommended to the board for its approval. That's the end of my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I'll now hand you over to Vince and Kevin Travers from KPMG. So Kevin, welcome if you're on.
I am. Good morning.
And Vince, good morning. And Vince, I'll let you set this up.
Great. Thank you, through the chair. Thank you. So today, Mr. Kevin Travers will present the audit findings report for the audit years ending in December 2022. Okay, and all yours, Kevin.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks. Sorry, Kevin. Just before you get going, I mean, if there's any information you want to share, or you may want to put it on the screen, we have one of our directors who has requested, if you're going to use any slide.
There is a presentation. I wasn't planning on necessarily sharing my screen. I don't know if anyone, does everyone have the material? Maybe let me ask that first.
Yeah, we have the material.
Okay.
Just one of our directors is having some challenges with having dual screen. So she was suggesting that we share the presentation, but that's fine. You go ahead.
Okay, because I'm planning on speaking to the highlights of this document rather than page by page. So.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Oh, good morning, everyone. So I'm here today. My name is Kevin Travers. I'm the lead audit partner from KPMG for Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. I'm going to speak today to the audit findings report. This is a summary version of the presentation that we made to your Audit, Finance and Risk Committee a few weeks back. The audit is complete. The only thing that's outstanding between us actually issuing our opinion at this point is understanding that the board approves the financial statements. And we're receiving a signed representation letter from management. We will be issuing a clean or unqualified audit opinion for the financial statements of TSHC for the year ended December 31st, 2022. In terms of the audit highlights for conducting the audit, we were able to perform our audit in accordance with our audit plan. So no significant changes from that standpoint. There were no uncorrected or corrected audit misstatements, and that's an important item to note. Had we encountered something that we asked management to adjust, we would have reported that back to your AFRC committee first, and it would have been part of this presentation. There were no adjustments made as a result of the audit. The audit procedures that we performed were based upon a materiality that was set at $750,000, which was much higher than last year's materiality. The reason for that being that the revenues, which is the metric we use to base materiality, was much higher in 2022 than it was in 2021. During the course of the audit itself, our focused areas were outlined. If you look at our report on pages 8 through 10, the most significant transaction during the year was the transfer of the responsibility of the properties from TCHC to TSHC and the employees as well. So you can see that our audit work and efforts focused in these areas. The presentation itself, or the document, outlines the procedures that we performed. There were no issues noted as a result of performing that work. In addition to the employees being transferred as well, there's also the accounting for the employee benefit plans that also went with those particular employees. And again, there was a reliance placed upon the work of the actuary, and the work that was related to that, the audit work, is listed in our deck itself. In terms of the uncorrected audit misstatements, I noted earlier there were none as a result of performing the audit. Had we encountered any, we would have reported those as part of our audit process. The appendices that are included in our report are largely what I would call for your information type reading. So there's a number of items related to being the new audit standard that was required to be implemented in the current period, and that was done so without any issues. And the very last slide within our deck has a number of links that those that have oversight responsibility over financial reporting may find useful. So whether it be reference to ESG type matters, the change in disclosures that may be coming down the road, and I'd say a few years out, related to ESG type matters, as well as other items that are could be of particular use for those that have oversight over financial reporting, including an audit committee guide. And that audit committee guide is useful for those that have audit committee responsibilities, from the smallest of entities to the largest of entities. So that's really at the very high level the presentation that I have this morning. I'd be very happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. You answered one of the questions I had on page 6 when I saw the materiality being increased from 19K to 750K. So I'm satisfied with that response. Thanks, and thanks to your team and Vince's team for putting this together and the presentation that you had at Finance and Audit Committee. Are there any questions for Kevin or Vince? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion? Be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the 2022 audited financial statements, and be it resolved that the Board of Directors recommend that the City of Toronto appoint KPMG to the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation external auditor for the year ending December 31st, 2023, with remuneration to be set by the Board of Directors.
Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence. Moved by Lawrence. May I have a seconder, please?
Seconded by Warren.
Seconded by Warren. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Once again, thank you very much, Vince, and thanks to the team at KPMG.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 10, and we have a deputation. Maybe I'll have our chair. Should we do the deputation first, or Linda, do you want to do your comments before we bring in the deputant?
If I could, that would be great for Reid, and then happy to hear from the deputant. Just because this is a summary, we have a number of items that are coming forward from QTE, our Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee. Okay. And I just wanted to summarize a little bit. Is that okay?
Okay, Linda, then go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Just that we had a meeting on March 9th, and that we've had some significant work on our strategic directions, and we're looking forward to presenting that. The operational dashboard was presented with key progress on key items such as vacancy rate, arrears, maintenance, and pest management, and we're going to have a presentation on that. There was a tenant policy consultation work underway that we reviewed, particularly around use of space and tenant action funds and priority setting for policies, and we will have a bit of an update on that. OACH is here to present their quarterly Q4 report, and we will look forward to having a report on that as well. I think we could, though, at this point, pass it on to our deputant, and then actually I'll ask you, Fareed, if you want to then actually let the different team members present.
Sure. Thanks, Linda, and thanks for adjusting your schedule to be here with us. Appreciate it, and obviously thanks for your work on Q2E. So we'll now go to our deputant, Julia. I invite you to address the board, and I think you have an issue specific to storage space in storage space and dogs in your building. So welcome. Look forward to hearing your perspective. Go ahead, please.
Oh, yes. Hi, my name is Julia. I'm from 540 Queens East building, which is very nice. I'm very happy to be there. And it's a cork town for those who are not familiar with Queen Street location. So I have several issues I would like to bring, and I think it may be useful to all buildings and all systems in future, and probably success stories could be shared, and some kind of unified approach to the problems could be chosen. And one of the main problem in our building is a basement. Basement is, I think, becoming dangerous because it's filled in with stuff. Sweepers could not move, but tenants are not longer living in the building or left, or it happened like 2 years ago, some of the basement problem, and it's still there. So what are the legal procedures, how it could be done, how to empty basement storage facility from the stuff which belongs to people who are no longer part of the community. So that's the issue I would like to address. And there's also recreation areas. Ours is still shut, but I know that it was shut for the COVID period, or when and how recreation areas would be reopened to exercise, and what are the procedures, or like what is the regulation on that one. And another issue, and probably the last one from me, it's how to protect people's bicycle and wheelchairs. Tenants from our building would like to have a cage, so they could keep their bicycles and wheelchairs not on balconies but outside. Because at the moment, if a wheelchair and it's electric, like attached to the pole of a gazebo, it's also kind of a dangerous situation if it would accidentally be started and the pole would be pulled. And there's several on Queen Street near buildings. There's several variants, very nice and beautiful designed bicycle cages, and probably it could be also be done in our background area. So that's what I would like to address. I think this issue resolved in our building could be used as a success story for other buildings, and we would be happy to share it with senior newspapers if and the success would be achieved with recommendation from the board.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
that's
very much, Julia. It's
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thanks
Yep.
again. It's always
Thank
good to
you
hear
for
from our
giving
tenants.
me.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for giving me the voice of a community time.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And thanks again for sharing your views. And I'm sure our staff have taken your comments into consideration. And again, I encourage you and all of our other tenants who are listening. This is your forum, so feel free if there's a particular item you'd like to speak on, let us know, and we'd be more than happy to accommodate you at our board meetings.
Yeah, we have also one more issue. It's about dog owners and how they should behave and what could be recommended. But that's probably, I could say, for the next meeting or for the newspaper.
Okay, thanks again.
Mhm.
All righty, take care. Are there any questions for our deputant? Okay, seeing none.
This is Brenda speaking. Can I just
Go
ask
ahead,
a
Brenda.
question? What would the cage
Of
do?
course.
What would the caging do? I'm not quite clear. Is this like for security reasons? People would have a key to put the bicycle and wheelchair in? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure the deputant is still on the line, but I think it had to do with security, where there would be a secluded and secured area for the storage of bike. Brad, you've got some additional insights on this?
Yeah, through the chair. The deputant's looking for, they have a secure courtyard there and they're looking to have bicycle racks installed within there so that the tenants can have
Okay.
their bikes.
Is that something that's possible? I don't know what our practice is in other locations, but downtown
Through the
people obviously are using bicycles, you know?
Yeah, so through the chair, this is what highlights the new community service coordinators that we've recently brought in to engage with communities on items like this, so that we can then understand what their need and what their requirement is, and we'll be able to facilitate and purchase bike racks and install them in a way that'll ensure that the tenants can keep their bikes in a safe and secure manner.
Okay. And then the opening of space, now that, you know, are there still areas that we're not opening up rooms because of COVID effects?
We're working with Toronto Community Housing to install the electronic key access to some areas. So there are some recreation facilities
okay.
that are still only open by a manual key.
Okay.
And those facilities are open during the day when staff are on site, but they have to be secured in the evening to ensure that people don't
Sure.
get into the building.
Sure. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Brenda. Alrighty, so we'll now move into the more substantive report from staff. Brad, over to you on the operational dashboard.
Read, sorry to interrupt. We have one additional deputant, Bill Lohman.
Yeah, I was going to call on that deputant, Matthew, just before I had the update from Grant, if that's okay.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, Brad.
Right. 1 second, I'm just going to bring it up. So the Quality Tenant Engagement Committee reviewed the operational dashboard for 2023, and that's been coming to the board for presentation. Arrears have remained stable, and we've now entered into a new information sharing agreement with the City of Toronto, where we're submitting quarterly reports. And I'm happy to say that the first quarter of 2023, we collected 99% of all of the rent that we charged out. Vacancy rate continues to remain low. We ended the quarter at 1.93%, which is down from 5.18% in June of 2022. And the we've now exceeded the target set by the service manager. As we go through, you can see that the green is now continues to shrink, which is part of what Coach and Melanie Martin will report on later, is that we're dealing with tenants when their arrears are lower so that they're easily able to pay off those amounts and get back into good standing. With regards to the vacancy rate, as I mentioned earlier, the number of vacant units is substantially decreased from 5.18% down to 1.93%. And we continue to report to the service manager and ensuring that we turn over units quickly and effectively. Work orders. We completed 8,325 work orders for the month, most relating to pest control, which has its own slide in a little bit. And our work order performance is substantially increased as far as the numbers that we're seeing come in. There's this freeze that's put upon doing work that's deemed non-essential in tenant units during the month of December. So we always have a dive followed by a bit of an increase. We don't want to interfere with people and their ability to enjoy their units unless it's urgent over the holidays. Pest control. We continue to see progress. We've actually entered into some pretty good analytics. The QIP is completed, and we're in the process of rolling out those recommendations. We've identified 9 priority buildings based upon pest control data, and our team has worked with Toronto Public Health over the first quarter to prepare 41 units for tenants for pest control. Staff have been able to prepare 11, and we've entered into an agreement with the city where we're able to provide some residents beds when their current beds are unusable due to infestations, and we'll continue to monitor that. Administrative requests, we've seen a sharp increase in the percentage, completing 76% of all the administrative requests received by the site staff with regards to rent reviews, document requests, and helping tenants with unit conditions and referrals. And our community safety incidents have continued to rise. We actually have met with the community safety unit at Toronto Community Housing in order to better form a working relationship and get better value for the investment that TSHC makes within the community safety unit. Any questions with regards to the operational dashboard?
Yes, thanks, Brad. Are there any questions for Brad?
Brenda here. You mentioned 9 priority buildings.
Correct. So we came to the board. And we've reallocated FTE back in 2022 to form an environmental health unit or have a more hands-on approach with regards to pest infestations. And those resources have been able to really dive into the numbers and to work with the vendor in order to identify what we consider our 9 priority buildings as far as infestation rates. And we'll be rolling out additional resources to those buildings in order to bring those numbers down.
Okay. And are there other buildings due to come up on that list, or this is just the first 9?
This is the first 9 that we've identified through either refusals, tenants being unable or unwilling to allow the vendor into the unit, tenants requiring assistance in preparation, or just infestation rates. So we've got a couple of plans in order to go through these buildings and work with the tenants and work with the vendor to better understand what we can do. And those are the results coming out of the quality improvement project, where we heard what tenants wanted and needed from TSHC in order to better prepare and better prevent pest infestations from spreading within our communities.
All right, thank you then.
Right. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brenda. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to our OACH update. Melanie, over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. So thank you. So yes, through the chair, I'm pleased to present the results of the OACH's work with the TSHC for the last quarter of 2022. So during this period of time, we received a total of 27 referrals and issued 23 individual reports and recommendations. So we successfully engaged with 96% of the cases referred to us and avoided the need for an L1 application in 90% of these cases. In addition, we collected approximately $114,000 through local repayment agreements, direct payments from tenants, and the Housing Stabilization Fund. During this period, we also audited the files we received from the TSHC and categorized the findings into 4 theme-based audit categories. So the most significant finding for this period was that the N4 was served late in 65% of cases, and that direct contact was not made with the tenant in the first month of arrears in 30% of the cases. That being said, though, 50% of these cases fell under the old arrears collection process, and we're seeing a lot of improvement with the new arrears collection process since TSHC took over in June. So going forward, I'm happy to report that we're working collaboratively with senior management, and we have developed a tool that will track our audit findings in real time. And I'm happy to say it went live April 12th. So this document will allow TSHC to recognize the issues found in our audits and address them sooner rather than wait for the results presented in our quarterly updates. In addition, the audits will be region specific and will allow TSHC to support staff in a specific capacity building and proactive way. So I hope this provides the board with a clear picture of our activities for the final period of last year, and I welcome any questions. So.
Thanks again. Appreciate it. I don't see any hands up, so I assume there are no questions.
Okay.
So before I invite Grant to provide us with a communications update, I'm now going to invite our friend Bill Lohman to speak on the communications update to be presented by Brad. Bill, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hunter, and members of the board. My name is Bill Lohman. Today's board meeting is closing out the inaugural year of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, and this past year has been a virtual windmill of activity to implement the city's integrated service model and the accountability framework. I want to say that last week I received a surprise phone call from Tom Hunter because I'd requested participation in the interview process for directors. And he informed me that he called to tell me that he had made a decision, and he provided an explanation why. This is an example of the considerate and respectful communication that would be nice to see in all staff management communication and interactions with tenants. And having learned this, I would like to offer my congratulations to our new Director of Engagement, Partnership, and Communications. She's stepping into a complex role to bring much needed cohesion and continuity to a model of engagement and to meet the expectations of multiple stakeholders, including ensuring that senior tenants are recognized voice at their building roundtables to grow trust into strong staff-tenant relations. And in order to work collaboratively with tenants, honest transparency is critically important. That means putting an end to the current "you don't need to know" attitude of staff, and we'll tell you what we want you to know when we want you to know it approach of management. Did you know that last week was National Volunteer Week, and that in 2023, the calculated value of a volunteer time has a worth of about $31 an hour? How many senior tenants were acknowledged on Volunteer Day or Volunteer Week for the day in and day out effort they put in to better their communities and to benefit housing? And what does this answer say about staff attitude towards tenants and the role that they play in volunteering? Senior councils were shut down 4 years ago. Why are senior tenants still in silos and denied tenant councils? Few people speak up at meetings and even fewer volunteer. Many leaders have backed away from engaging with you and have chosen to go volunteer where they feel their effort is appreciated. Nothing has been done to address long-standing tenant apathy. And so how is the work going in communities to connect with tenant leaders? What happened to the participation of tenants that used to be on the Tenant Action Fund Committee that is now staff only deciding what tenants will be getting, and it's behind closed doors? What happened to the rhetoric about transparency, honesty, and trust? When discussions over the last 6 months with staff and management regarding common space use is met with a purposeful lack of follow-through that results in waffling on explicit promised action and pandering to agency exclusivity, it is tantamount to the constructive dismissal of active tenant reps. I signed on to participate on the Staff-Tenant Relations QIP, and for its foundational importance in establishing good communication and positive interactions to generate trust and promote collaborative opportunities. Instead, the QIP agenda and the expected outcomes were prearranged, staff-approved, staff-focused and devoid a senior lens. The facilitator seemed more interested in ticking off the boxes on his agendas than interacting. I asked if he had read the Seniors Health and Wellness Initiative. He didn't even know what it was, proving a bias. Raised issues and concerns were stifled, and the facilitator was dismissive, argumentative, and brusque. I resigned after the third meeting. Are these issues and tenant concerns the result of poor interpretation and bad policy application by staff and management? Or might the integrated service model contain overlooked flaws that need to be addressed and corrected? This is a possibility that was presented to QTE directors, and I am waiting for a reply and a conversation on this matter to fix the holes that are in the model. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bill, and as always, thanks for your candid and insightful comments. Are there any questions for Bill or any clarification being sought from staff? Okay, seeing none, I mean, I think those were well thought out comments, and in particular, I think the recognition of the hours of volunteerism put in by our tenants, senior tenants in particular. I think we probably need to do a better job at recognizing those. So once again, Bill, appreciate your comments, and I'm sure our staff will take those into considerations as we move forward. And also, thanks again for your ongoing work that you do with us and keep us accountable. And we'd encourage you to continue to participate in the different forums that you have access to. Carrie.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Fareed, and thank you, Bill. I think we're thanking Bill a lot for raising many of the same issues over and over, and we do need to somehow get together and address the specific items he's talking about, because he's raising them numerous times, and he's not really getting a response that I can see.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate your comments. Maybe what I'll do then, if it's the board's will, I'm going to ask staff to maybe prepare a response that we can provide to Bill on the item that he has raised at today's meeting, and if necessary, we can have a further conversation with Bill once that response has been prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Right. I'm not going to ask for a resolution in that regard. I assume it's the will of the board to allow staff to prepare a response, and we'll have a further discussion with Bill in that regard. And I make a personal commitment to meet with staff and potentially with Bill, if he is so inclined to have some of those issues addressed, and we'll bring back some of those outcomes to the board.
Yeah, I will agree to be part of that if we need additional board involvement.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
Just a question here. It's Brenda.
Go ahead, Brenda.
This community use of space, I don't know where we are on that. I know we've been talking about it, and I don't know if there's one definitive report we're expecting, but I know this was a contentious issue, and I'm just wondering where we are with discussion or resolving of it. Is it ongoing, or is it something that's due to have a report given to us?
Grant, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the use of space policy is a piece of work that's been ongoing, getting input from tenants. So through the stakeholder engagement process, and that's where we have Health Commons assisting in doing tenant engagement focus groups on that particular policy. They have recently concluded the tenant engagement component for that. That included meeting with a number of tenants and having conversations with the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee recently. And a summary report of that has been drafted that we're looking at right now in terms of the different considerations that they heard through that process, which we will then bring forward for further review in terms of potential policy considerations and changes. And that'll go back through STAC and through further stakeholder engagement before it comes back to QTE. So that's a piece of work that's in process, and a number of elements associated with some of Bill's comments and other input from tenants have been gathered through that process on that policy. Just for reference, we're also working concurrently on the tenant actions fund policy in a similar way. So there is work ongoing, and it will come back to this committee, or sorry, to the committee and the board ultimately when we're further along.
I'm asking this because
Sorry, Brenda, is there a timeline, Grant, for that work to be concluded or brought to this committee? I don't need specific, just rough timelines.
Hoping to be able to bring something back to QTE, not at the next meeting, but at the subsequent meeting and then board after.
Right, thanks. Brenda?
Yes, thank you. I'm just, I don't want to lose sight of this because what started this, if you remember, was concern about, I think it was Wood Green that got the contract for the Strathmere location and all the challenges that produced. I just want to make sure we're not moving and tying up space with organizations that we haven't yet gone through a process of understanding what it is we want in terms of accountability and transparency. So I just want to, whether it comes back to the committee first or to the board, I just want to make sure we have some priority attached to this, because how you engage with people at the building level and how they use their space for their community concerns is important. As much as we do want services being delivered, obviously, at the location, I think there's a very nuanced relationship we need to have with whatever contractor or whatever organization we work with. So I just want to highlight my concern and somehow bring this back for some future determination and some timely manner, because that's going back way last year to the spring, I believe. So we're now a year later. So I just want to point out my concern and priority for that.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. I see Tom hand is up. Tom, go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, I'll respond to Brendan. Then I also see that Jim has his hand up, so I know I'm just preempting you a wee bit there, Jim, but I will just speak to Brenda's point. So just as an example around where we negotiate very carefully with the tenants and the needs and the use of their spaces is right now occurring with Baycrest and some work in 4 of our buildings. And there was a very comprehensive thought through, written out plan around communicating with the tenants around the use of space, the use of services that they would like to see. And I'll be coming to the QTE and then in board in June with the work on that partnership. Very promising. But just to share that there was absolutely consideration and engagement with the tenants around the use of space and the needs of what they would like to see in that space. So it is definitely a part of this work with the partners that we are considerate of.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Jim.
Can everyone hear me? I bought a new camera and speaker, and I'm hoping that this one works better. Is
it's hard to
hear
hear
what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out, Jim.
So this one's causing problems too.
That's better.
No, that's better. That's much better.
I just wanted to go back to Bill Lohman's deputation and the recommendation that was made. I'd like to be involved in that as well. I agree with Carrie, and I think it's a really important topic.
Okay, no problem, Jim. Once we start through the process, we'll engage Carrie and yourself as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. So before we we've got the final item on the agenda for this item, which is item number 10, communications updates. So I'll invite Grant. Grant, floor is yours.
Thank you, Fareed. So through the chair, I'll provide a brief update on this report. So at the last Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee meeting, we brought forward an update on several activities happening in the communications area. And this report summarizes those, and I'll provide a couple of highlights. So for this year, the communications team, in consultation and collaboration across the broader TSHC team, has developed a communications plan to help guide the activities and priorities for communications activities for this year. And that is taking into consideration a number of different inputs from different sources, including interaction with tenants and staff, the listening tours and whatnot, and also looking at the projects and initiatives for the year. In terms of some of the specific activities happening around communication with tenants, there is the community letter. And as of now, we've had 4 letters published to date. The next letter will be published in May. And with those, there's also an accompanying video message that Tom does. Going forward, the community letter is actually going to be integrated in with the Senior Speak newsletter as well, so that they're together. With regards to Senior Speak, earlier this year, we published our February edition of that, which was, I believe was the second edition of Senior Speak since we launched in June of last year, and the next edition of Senior Speak is coming up in May. We've been updating poster templates and are looking to translate those into 13 languages to help deal with ensuring that we're being aware and sensitive to meet the different language requirements of our tenants. We can also translate into more languages than that, but we're looking at the top 13. We've implemented a new bulletin board procedure in terms of how information is organized and placed up in buildings. Also working on ensuring that the website content associated with TSHC is AODA compliant, and we have a vendor on board to help us with that. We've also completed some RFPs for translation and interpretation services to support both the document written translation and also for events such as listening tours going forward. And then finally, we've also worked with RPATH, the accessibility group, on the completion and distribution of a guide for tenants about how to get accessibility modifications as required in the process to make it easier for tenants. That has also been translated into 13 languages. With regards to staff, we've held some staff town halls. So for example, there was one in December celebrating the end of the year, and also an appreciation for long-term staff acknowledgement. We had another town hall in March of this year. We've been continuing the staff bulletins moving forward, and we've been sharing those with the board and receiving good feedback on the content and the messaging that's in there. And then Tom also releases videos to staff after each board meeting. And then we've also heard about the listening tours already that Tom provided a brief update on earlier. That has reached out to over 2,000 tenants to date. So there's been quite a bit of an opportunity for engagement with tenants on that as well. And I'll conclude that there is a tenant engagement model project underway as well. And this is the future model for tenant engagement at TSHC. That's where we've retained a consultant, Barnes Management Group, to help support the process for us to work through initially some engagement with different stakeholders, primarily tenants, including STAC, on how that model will be developed, and then ultimately helping us to develop the model and bringing it back through committee and board for ultimately approval later on this year. We're targeting that to be completed in the mid to late summer period. And that's a very significant initiative. Obviously, that will drive out a number of opportunities for improvements related to what we've been hearing about on this deputation today, and related to overall how we will have a voice for tenants, and tenants will be represented in their communities. I'll stop there, and if there's any questions.
Okay, thanks, Grant. Any questions?
Brenda here.
Okay, go ahead, Brenda.
What do you mean? It sounds rhetorical, but when you say the tenant engagement model, what are you speaking about here? Are you talking in terms of a formalized manner in which we'll be engaging with tenants? I mean, we've contracted Barnes Management Group, but to do what? I'm not quite certain. If you can get a little more specific as to what it is we're seeking to obtain here.
Yeah, so for example, today, with regards to having formal tenant representation in buildings, we have a system that is based on a legacy arrangement with TSHC that
Yeah.
was never fully implemented in TSHC. So we have a partially implemented legacy engagement model where some buildings have representatives and some buildings
Right.
don't, for example.
Right.
And the role of the representatives is something that's not clear as well. So we have to decide whether we want to have, and this is through the process to get input from tenants, how they want to have a voice, what types of matters they'd like to have a voice in, how they would like that voice to be considered. And that could be through the future development of additional tenant representative models, councils, committees, at different levels within the building, within the regions, on different topics. So this is to actually work through a process to gather input and feedback from tenants on how they would like to be represented based on, for example, the work that was done last year, the Joy Connolly report, where the Senior Tenant Advisory Committee was engaged at that time to talk about the future tenant engagement model. That's a big input into that process, for example, which gave a lot of broad perspective on how tenant engagement could help address a number of issues that contribute to tenants being, successful in their tenancies and feeling that they're listened to and have opportunities to contribute to their communities and participate. So when we look at tenant engagement, there are aspects of that are included not just in the work with Barnes, but also in our interim strategic directions, another item coming up today where we've set some context and structure for how we want to set strategy on this. And all of that is helping to drive out what will ultimately be this project to work through. First of all, doing an engagement with people to hear what their ideas are, and then formulating some options to come forward and selecting those to bring into an ultimately new model for tenant engagement. So there's a lot of work there.
Yeah.
And we can share separately if you want a bit more information on the specifics of what the tasks are and the activities with that project.
Yes, I would if possible. Are we presenting options to tenants, or we're just asking in the ether that they come up with solutions? I think it's important to have a structured engagement process so people have something to respond to, not just something airy, fairy, like how do you want to be involved? I mean, I think that's too open-ended. And I would like to have considered options about self-management of buildings. I know that's a different trend, but I think it might be useful to have a couple pilot projects. What if we actually gave up some control to the tenants to manage their community, their housing that they live in? So I'd like, some specificity in terms of options for tenants to respond to, if that's possible. So anything you can provide me with, I'd appreciate it. But I just want to highlight,
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
Carrie?
Thank you, Farida, and thank you, Grant. Having heard, I'm surprised at what I just heard, that we're now sort of going back out to tenants. I thought we'd covered sort of a lot of ground through STAC, and we would now be at the point where we're drilling down on how the structure of the tenant engagement model should be. There's been so much input. I'm just surprised that we would again be going out to many different tenants who, perhaps have had absolutely no involvement in what tenant engagement means, how it works. And to Brenda's point, even can understand, sort of what it is. When STAC has been so involved in this for a year and a half.
So through the chair, just quickly, so STAC is still very involved in this. We actually meet with them on Monday with Barnes Management to go over the approach to reach out to tenants to get further engagement on this. So we haven't yet, conclusively decided how that further tenant engagement more broadly will happen. We're looking for feedback from STAC on that on Monday. And the idea is to ensure that we have an effective representative opportunity for input. In addition, looking, for example, existing tenant leaders that are out there that aren't part of STAC, they probably would have a perspective on that. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel on this for sure, but just to make sure we've got a little bit an opportunity to engage, and we're actually running the questions by stack that we would ask tenants, for example.
Great.
So there's
Great,
opportunities
okay.
for stack to help guide us through this as well with their feedback and input.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary. Jim, you have the final word on this.
Yeah, I just would like to thank you for initiating this process, because I think it's really important for the tenants and for tenant leaders to have something to work with that is different from what's been worked with in the past. I'm sure that the input from stack is going to be vital in this process. And thank you for making sure they're involved.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Gary. All good comments. I appreciate it. I think the one thing that Gary mentioned is we also need to be conscious about consultation fatigue and making sure that, you know, we're not, as Grant put it, reinventing the wheel, but continue the dialogue where we left off. So with the committee's indulgence, I'm going to request that we switch item 11 and item 12. I know that Councillor Crisanti has to leave for another meeting. So if there are no objections, I'm going to invite him to give his report on corporate governance, and then we'll move into the item regarding the interim strategic directions. So if there are no objections, Councillor Crisanti, I invite you to make your opening comments before we invite staff to go into the details.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Fareed. Appreciate it. I have another meeting that just started about 5 minutes ago. So first of all, I was honored to chair my first meeting of corporate governance and HR back in March March 15th. And the key item discussed during that meeting was the draft content of the 2022 Toronto Senior Housing Annual Report, which included a copy of the 2022 audited financial statement. That report provided information on Toronto Senior Housing Corporation performance and summarized progress made on key initiatives that was undertaken during the transition since June 1st of 2022. The report was broken down in 7 key sections: transition achievements, operations, community voices, community impact, people and culture, governance and management, and financial statements. The report is aimed at reaching a wide range of audiences, such as tenants, staff, partner agencies, and City of Toronto staff. So some of the highlights within this report included implementing the integrated service model for the tenants across the 83 seniors buildings, aimed at improving the staff to tenant ratios, and the establishment of the complex tenancies team. And additionally, which I'm really pleased to report, connecting 79 seniors from the shelter system to our buildings through the rapid rehousing initiative. So, and also effectively reducing vacancies to 2.43% at the end of 2022, with the ongoing goal of further reducing the rate to 2%. And finally, prioritizing the safety, well-being, and engagement of the tenants. So that, Mr. Chair, are the highlights of that last meeting, and I felt it was very productive, and I look forward to our next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So Grant, I know the report was circulated. I'm not sure if you've got any highlight you want to share before we go to the resolution.
So thank you. So through the chair, and thank you, Councillor Crisanti, as well. So I think, Councillor Crisanti, you've done a good overview of the contents of the report. The only work we've done since the discussion at Corporate Governance and HR Committee is we've taken and finalized the design, inserted the photos, and made the report more visually pleasing. And that's the attachment and version of that you have before you today. And I think there's an awful lot of content and information there that highlights the achievements both in planning for and post-transition that we're very proud of as an organization, but we'll build on going forward as well. And we're looking for approval of the board today of the annual report, which once approved will be submitted to the city as part of a package being considered later in this meeting.
Thanks, Grant. Are there any questions? Any The only thing I would add, Grant, I think we had a bit of a conversation the last time we met about preparing maybe a very, very condensed version in the form of a trifolder that we can provide to tenants who may not be inclined to read the entire report, but perhaps just summarizing the highlights. I'll leave it up to you and the communications team to sort it out, but I think it might be helpful to just provide a one pager in the form of a trifold brochure that tenants can easily glean what we have done over the last year or so.
Yes, through the chair, that is a piece of work that we have started to develop as well from the feedback from that meeting. So yes, we will develop that as well.
Great, thanks. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the 2022 Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation annual report. And then I've got a couple of further motions if
So
that's
moved,
okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, Councillor Crisanti. So moved by Gary, seconded by Councillor Crisanti. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, so with that, thank you, directors, for your indulgence. We'll move back to item number 11.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.
Thanks.
Just
And again, sorry, go ahead.
for just before we run, I just want to say how impressed I am with the annual report. So Grant, everybody involved, it's a pleasure to be associated with it. It's a great document.
Yeah, thanks. I did communicate that earlier to staff, so I appreciate Carrie you doing that publicly. It's a good report. All righty, so we'll go back to item number 11. I know we had quite a bit of conversation about this on a number of occasions. This is our interim strategic directions and key performance indicators. Once again, I want to thank Mary and the senior team, Tom and his entire team for the work that has been done in this. And also thank the board. I mean, you folks have invested a lot of time in this. So I appreciate the work of the board, your full engagement, and of course, the support we received from staff led by Mary and Tom. So Mary, Tom, I don't know if you have any opening comments to set this up, but with that, I'll invite you and or Mary to take us through the, hopefully the final discussion on this item.
That's through the chair. So I'll just start with a couple of comments because you've expressed it, I think, so well. I just, for me, it is the kind of the path that has been laid out around the direction with goals, objectives, action plan, indicators. It will be a document that will serve us very well in terms of not only strategy but in guiding our operations. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Mary, go ahead.
Great, thanks. Through the chair. Grant, did you want to say anything first, or shall I just get started?
I just thank you, Mary. So I just wanted to say that we're very pleased that we're at this point in the process after having started this last fall, setting a structure, working through stakeholder engagement, and actually refining the material in the document to bring it forward to you, aligning our key performance indicators along the way, and developing a detailed work plan. And this has been quite a bit of work to undertake in this period of time. And we're very pleased that we're now at a stage where we can bring it forward for approval. It's being brought forward for approval as content today, similar to how we did the annual report as content at CGHRC. We're asking for approval for the content today. It will still be going through a final review for design, AODA compliance in that view and whatnot as we move forward. So I want to extend a thank you as well to the team and Mary, and I'll turn it over to Mary. This has been a significant piece of work, and Mary will walk us through it.
Thank you, and through the chair. I don't have a lot to say today, just to remind the process on March 9th, the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee looked at the main document. And on April 3rd, we had a special meeting of the board where the documents on the KPIs and the roadmap were reviewed by the board. So what I want to do is just very quickly tell you what we've done since April the 3rd that resulted in the documents that you have in front of you. First of all, we added the chair and CEO introduction to the integrated service delivery model, and we updated the process, and it's actually written as if the board approves today, so it is the wording that would show in the final document. We've updated the roadmap, and we went through the roadmap with all of the key people responsible, and particularly asked for attention to are the timelines that are proposed reasonable and doable, and everybody has reviewed, and we did move some of the timelines out a little bit to reflect that. We moved the communications objective from being part of the enablers into strategic objective 2. And this was to reflect the new organizational structure that I think the board has looked at. And we have added the director, the title of the director that's accountable for each objective and enabler, so that we again have alignment in terms of accountability with the interim strategic directions. We went through and made sure that there was complete alignment between the three documents in terms of wording, between the ISD and the KPI document and the roadmap. So it should all read the same, so the documents are parallel. And finally, we did a little bit of editing to streamline the wording where people had commented that it was a bit kludgy. I don't know what else word to use, but we tried to fix some of that. In terms of next steps, it will go next to communications for design and formatting, both for a web and a PDF type format, and to AODA compliance, and for the development of a communications plan. So the recommendations, as Grant said, is to approve the content of the three documents, the ISD, the expected outcomes, and the roadmap, and request that we return with the final format to the next board meeting.
Thanks, Mary. I'm glad you fixed the Pluggy index. So
we'll see what you think.
No, it's great. I mean, I think we've been through this a few times, and again, thanks for the work that you folks have done. Are there any comments from the board? Or all right, apart from the great work, once again, thank you. So I'll move to the resolution. Can I get a motion? Be it resolved that the board of directors approve the content of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation interim strategic directions, the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation expected outcomes linked to the strategic initiatives and actions and proposed metrics, and the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation interim strategic directions roadmap.
So moved, Mr. Chair. It's Warren.
Thanks, Warren. May I have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Jim. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion has been approved. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to everyone. This has been a significant piece of work, and it's a great accomplishment in moving us forward. And I think we've got something now that we can work towards, and some clear directions that has been the product of a tremendous amount of work from staff and from the board. Okay, we'll now move to the item number 13.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll just make some high-level comments, but I'm going to turn it over to Grant to just take us through this item. But just want to recognize the kind of the heavy lifting that was done in this work by Arlene, Vince, and Grant. This was a new process that the city introduced for us around the annual general meeting for the city. So, pleased to report that work has progressed well, but just wanting to recognize the work of those three in terms of moving this to where we are today. So, Grant.
Thank you, Tom. So through the chair, I'll provide a summary of what this report contains. So as Tom has noted, the intent of this is to get board approval today to form the content that will be our submission to the city under the requirements of the Business Corporations Act and our shareholder direction to fulfill the annual general meeting for Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, which will actually be part of an upcoming city council meeting in July. So the package or the report in front of you seeks approval from the board for the elements of that audit annual general meeting package. And those items will include the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2022 annual report that was just approved in this meeting. It will include the 2022 audited financial statements that were approved earlier in this meeting as well. Third, it will include the recommendation and approval of the 2023 auditor, also approved earlier in this meeting. And then there are two attachments to this report that are required. One of them is an attachment with the 2022 executive compensation disclosure, and the second one is a financial impact attachment. Once this particular package is approved, we will then coordinate and forward this to the city directly to the city clerk at the City of Toronto. We are working with the city manager's office at the City of Toronto in terms of this process to ensure we do this appropriately. But the intent is we would forward that to them by a deadline that they've set in June, and then ultimately it would form part of our annual general meeting package in July at that council meeting. So I'll stop there and just take any questions.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Tom. Are there any questions on the contents of the AGM report going to City Council? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to read the motions out. Be it resolved that the board recommends that the City Council treat the portion of the City Council meeting at which these recommendations are considered as the AGM of the shareholder for the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, and A, receive the board-approved Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2022 annual report, BD April 27th, item 12A, receive the board-approved Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2022 audited financial statements, BD April 27th, number 9A, appoint KPMG LLP as auditor of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation for fiscal year 2023, and authorizing the board of directors of Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation to set the fee of the auditor as recommended by the board, BD April 27th, item number 9B, receive the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2022 executive compensation disclosure forming attachment 1 to this report. Number 2, the board recommends that City Council forward a copy of the board approved Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation 2022 audited financial statements to the City Council Audit Committee for information. Number 3, the board recommends that City Council receive the financial impact section regarding known and anticipated financial outlooks and impacts current and future years for Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation forming attachment 2 to this report. Number 4, the board authorizes the corporate secretary on behalf of the board to submit the board's recommendations and materials identified in recommendations 1 to 3, once approved by the board at its meeting of April 27, 2023, to the city clerk for consideration by executive committee and city council. May I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chair. It's Warren.
Lawrence. Okay, moved by Lawrence, seconded by Warren. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to item number 14, which is a resolution to move into camera. So may I ask someone to move the following? Be it resolved that the board close part of the meeting to the public to give consideration to a report containing matters about an identifiable official.
So moved, Mr.
May I have
Chair.
a motion in that regard? Thanks, Gary. Have a seconder, please.
I'll second
May I have
that.
a seconder for that? Thank you very much. All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We'll now wait for the live streaming to stop before we go into our closed meeting.